Good morning. My name is Scott Masage, and thank you for joining today's Take30. So it's a very exciting Take30. We are joined by Andy Bell from Precisely, who's going to talk a bit about Precisely's integration suite and also data enrichment from Precisely. So just a few words about Ironside up front. So we are the current Precisely Partner of the Year, and we hold the title, if you will, of the most innovative use of the vendor with the most innovative use of data as a differentiator. And we were able to win that award given our ability to execute things like rapid data enrichment demonstrations, provide visualizations of integrated data sources, and build data science models for our clients. And beyond our Precisely knowledge, we have complementary skills with Amazon Web Services, business intelligence, and data science. Also Snowflake. All of these make us a strong partner for your organization. All right, our tagline, the mantra we live by, we help our clients use data to make better decisions about their business. All right, and Precisely is a big part of that. All right, and just a schedule of upcoming events. So we've got the Focus on Precisely today. The next session, so we're skipping the Thanksgiving, of course, and then the next session will be an exploration of natural language query across some modern BI tools. And then on the 10th, we will be covering design sprints as a means to reduce risk and drive adoption for your BI initiatives. All right, and again, my name is Scott Masage. I'm the practice director for BI at Ironside. And let me turn it over to Andy to introduce himself.
Hi there, thanks ever so much, Scott, and thanks for asking me to talk today. So just an introduction, I'm Andy Bell, I'm the VP of Global Data Product Management at Precisely. My role at Precisely is around looking after our enrichment data, so the data that our customers use day in, day out within our software and many other people's software and in Ironside's capabilities as well. So I'm going to go through a couple of things today. The first one is to talk around our data integrity suite, and then to touch upon our data enrichment portfolio that I look after and some of the capabilities we have within that. So first of all, let's start with data integrity. We've been looking at this over the last year as we brought together the SyncSort and Pitney Bowes capabilities and rebranded them all as Precisely, and looking at, what does data integrity mean? And it's really, we believe, is around having data with maximum accuracy, consistency, and context, which also gives you confidence in the business decision-making process that you undertake. And, I think it's that context part of it is really important for us. And what we introduce into that is the concept of location and data enrichment. And ultimately, we bring together a set of capabilities. And what we've realized in terms of bringing the sort of data integrity suite capability is our customers are driven by their use cases. It's not an IT initiative anymore. It's around what does the business actually want to do, and a lot of decisions on how that's implemented is now made by the businesses in collaboration with their IT teams. So quite often, traditionally it was all sort of driven by IT. The business is now involved in that decision-making process, and and a lot of that is being driven by the promotion of the data science as a capability and around how they make greater use of data. And it is a journey. There is no sort of end point to this. We're always collecting data, we're always needing to process data. We've got new business cases, new challenges that we all have to meet. And, every business has a unique journey. And what they need to be able to do is be able to define that within discrete steps and be able to really implement that essential, really a targeted implementation rather than kind of like the traditional sort of platforms that we've seen and used over many of those years. And how we see that is around the introduction of our data integrity suite, is around, looking to get integrity, that trust in data through accuracy, consistency, and then the context. And it's built around our capabilities of data integration, data quality, our unique perspective around location intelligence, and around data enrichment. And it's around bringing those modulars. So, understanding how you need to bring in, integrate, and move your data around, then ensuring that you've got quality validation around that data, bringing in that spatial capability. And then once you've got data that your internal data that you trust, you can then bring external data to bear upon that and increase the value through that process. And so when we kind of bring that data integrity suite together, it offers a whole host of software and components and capabilities. But ultimately, what I like about it is how we then introduce our data products into that process. And our data enrichment portfolio is a global portfolio. It has a location attribute to it. It's talking about what's going on in a location. It could be an address, it could be a property, it could be a flood zone, it could be a whole host of data around that place. And really, it's also the ability to provide that data in different ways. Lots of clients traditionally like on-premise, bulk download, but we're seeing more and more customers wanting to move to a cloud service, move to a transactional capability, and the ability to access these components and this data through APIs. And a little later, I'll show you a particular data that we are purely delivering through an API service. So in terms of the data enrichment, certainly that Precisely looks at, as I said, we look at data that has a location component to it, and traditionally that's been the preserve of GIS analysts and geographic information system analysts, but we see more and more that this is becoming a mainstream part of businesses day in and day out work. And I think through the provision of data integrity suite and our location capabilities, it's making it much easier to access this type of data. And when you look at it, we organize our portfolio into 5 particular areas or 5 families. And really, you start off with an address, having an address list, being able to locate that address, and talk about the property attributes of that address, building footprints and the parcels. And we pull that data together, and what we find is a lot of our customers, primarily within insurance and telco, bring that data together to be able to inform their business processes. So it might be, looking at how do you price a policy, how do you process an insurance claim, can I get a fiber network to that property, can I serve those addresses, and can they access new 5G capabilities. So we see customers using that data in a lot of those specific questions they'll have around how they deliver to an address and the property. Those addresses and properties sit alongside streets, and we tell our customers all about the street network, how easy it is to navigate and have logistical capabilities around those streets, but also the volume of traffic and the speed that traffic travels in. So you start to look at use cases around retail location analytics, warehousing, understanding real estate, because you're trying to understand accessibility, risk, and what sort of architecture and attributes you see on that street information. Alongside all of that, you'll find business information. So our points of interest here, we bring a full business listing plus all of those other locations that consumers are interested in. It might be tourist locations, a train station, and other sorts of tourist style and travel style capabilities. And what we find customers here is, yeah, there's traditional sort of retail analytics, but we also work with a lot of financial companies who are looking at understanding the types of businesses that co-locate, what's the ownership of those businesses. You look at insurance companies that use them to understand risk at a location. So what types of businesses are co-located, and do they present a particular risk when you're insuring that location? But also down to helping companies monetize location data for mobile-based advertising and marketing capabilities. So again, a real broad set of capabilities. And what we find here is a lot of our customers mix all of this data together to be able to solve their use cases. We then have a whole host of boundary data. This could be as simple as a 5-digit zip code, a county boundary, but also include neighborhood boundaries, school boundaries, time zones, flood zones, earthquake zones, fixed telco infrastructure areas, a whole host of different types of boundaries. And a lot of companies use this to aggregate their market information, understand risk exposure. They might want to be able to do market share, market penetration analysis, all of those types of things. But they also might want to use it to be able to tag locations. So we work with a number of large social media organizations that use it to tag posts and then helps them deliver advertising to specific locations. So if they've got location-specific events or marketing opportunities, they use that data to drive that business. And then we have our demographics. So that talks around the people that live in particular locations. So that could be broad demographics. How many people live in a location, how old they are, and what type of ethnicity, what type of housing do they live in. We then translate that into being able to do consumer segmentation within our geodemographics. So being able to not only look at particular types of people, but being able to then use that data to profile, understand the types of customers that you attract and where you find more of them. And like I said, what we find is a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, to solve their use cases, they want to use our data integrity suite to be able to organize their data, be able to make sure it's clean, be able to locate it, and then be able to enrich it using this whole host of external third-party data to be able to execute on their use cases. Now, one of the interesting areas that we work in is around, I'll just go back. If you look at all of those different types of data, it's very complex. What we look to do is to link them together, so make them interpretable. So link them together so when you get an address, you know what street it's on, you know what POIs are located there, you know what boundaries it falls within, and what the demographics are of the location that it is placed within. So connecting that data is really, really important. It's also incredibly complex because you have to solve a whole host of spatial relationships, make sure things are consistent, and link them. And addresses are incredibly complex. You get into condominiums, you get into the corners of streets, things can get very, very complex. So we do a lot of linking. And really the core component of that linking is something that we call the Precisely ID. And our Precisely ID is a unique and persistent ID that we put on an address location. So we have this within the US, Canada, and Australia. Now, what does that mean? It means that it makes it a lot easier to geocode, to manage those addresses, and to process data against it. So you can imagine, you've got an ID, instead of passing a whole host of an address information, you can start to pass an ID around instead. And what it allows you is to manage your data better, be able to move and exchange data around businesses and across businesses, to be able to enrich data easily, particularly when you're looking at spatial information, and obviously to ultimately get into the analytics and insight that the Ironside team do as well. And to kind of put that into context, what we're able to do is you take an address, relate it through the ID systems to property attributes, to floods, to be able to know what neighborhood it's in, what type of geodemographic classification it is, what's the building footprint it falls in, what's the businesses. And you do that by linking them together through that precisely ID. So as an end user, you're no longer thinking about, gosh, I've got to do all this complex spatial processing, link things together. We go, we've done all of that. As long as you can match to an address, get the precisely ID, you then link to all of these through our ID linking systems. And it just brings a whole wealth of data easier into the your ecosystem. And what's interesting is then, how you use that data. So, I talked before, our customers use our data in a whole host of different ways. One of those ways is to access our data via APIs. And what I've got in here is a new service that we are launching in the next week. We have our first customer, and it's called Dynamic Weather. It's only delivered via an API. And the reason for that is because it's essentially live information. So what we've done is we're taking those lovely, colorful satellite imageries that we get that look great, but that's the problem. They're just an image. We need to convert them into something that actually can be actioned. So we create a geohash, which is basically lots and lots of little squares, be able to associate the information from that imagery into those squares, which means that we can then say what precisely IDs, what addresses are going to be impacted by this weather event. So we're working with a lot of insurance companies around how they then use that to, when a weather event is happening, is where do we think it's going to get impacted? Therefore, we can send out warning alerts. Where do we know has been impacted by the most recent event? So we can work out where do we need to send out our claims advisors? Can we sort out where there may be fraudulent claims because that address was not hit by the event, or certainly didn't receive, the size of hail that they're claiming? It also means you can do historical analysis, so understanding what risk exposure you would have based on previous events, but it also allows you to understand the predicted avenue of that particular event as well. So really what I wanted to do today was just give you an introduction. We have this software capability bringing in the concept of data integrity around, the accuracy and consistency, and then the context of that data. And then when we talk about context, that third-party data enrichment capability that we can bring, that the Ironside team make full use of in terms of the analytics and capabilities that they bring to bear with their customers. So I hope you find that, I know, fairly brief and fairly high-level overview of these components, but I certainly hope you find that interesting. And I think we've got a bit of a roundup from Scott to put it into the context of what Ironside do as a partner with Precisely.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. So I wanted to wrap up today's Take 30 by talking a bit about how Precisely's offerings fit into what we refer to as Ironside's modern analytics framework, which is something that we reviewed in a series of Take 30s earlier this year. So as a refresher at a high level, our modern analytics framework approach is about leveraging all of an organization's base enterprise data assets and then using modern tooling to bring together additional other data for the enrichment of that enterprise data. So that other data I speak of is often public or third-party data. And this, in addition to the tools that drive the integration, is actually where it precisely fits into our modern analytics framework. And the goal, certainly this framework allows for varied levels of refinement, from the raw format of something like a data lake to the high level of refinement and analytics alignment of something like an enterprise data warehouse. And really the goal here is to provide services as a basis for value discovery and better data-driven decision-making within your organization. Okay. And I do invite you to check out I think it's a 6-part series on the modern analytics framework that we've got in our Take30 site. And if you've only got a bit of time, certainly check out the first one or the last one, which summarizes what that framework is. Okay, so I think at this point we can move on to the Q&A portion of our Take30 today. So let me take a look here. So, okay, first question. What's your opinion around where to put your effort when approaching data enrichment? Should we strive to start with great data, or is it more about applying the right modeling techniques to the data that you already have? That's a great question. So, Andy, what do you think?
Thanks ever so much, Scott. And I think really, both elements of those are really, really important. Ensuring that you're using the right techniques for the problem that you have in hand is very, very important, because because once you understand that, you understand how you need to present your data into that model, and you're using something that's highly applicable. However, you'll only get a great model if you've got great data. So being a data guy, and I'm also an analyst, surprisingly, I'm a member of the Royal Statistical Society, don't know how I do that, but I always understood that having great data was really, really important. And that's why we kind of focus on that data integrity, and then also around bringing our products into it. And I think both, Precisely and Ironside, like many other companies, have all gone, we've really pressed that, what you want to do is make the prep of your data, reduce that as much as possible, so you're focusing on your time rather than being a data processing house to being a data analytics, insight, solving your problems. However, one of the things I've started to think about recently is, and I've seen this with a lot of conversations I have with data scientists who get fixated on the algorithm, and I'm saying, do you actually understand your data? So we can't reduce that data prep and process so you're never touching it, because you need to understand your data, you need to understand how it distributes, you need to understand its nuances, you need to understand no data is perfect, and understanding how that might influence the model and the data and the prep that you do. So if you're going to transform your data, then you need to understand those elements. So I think it's really, you really need to understand the data that you're going to use, how it's distributed, where it comes from, those nuances, and those things that are going to limit how your model's going to work. So I think both of those are, those are really important. But just don't forget the data. It's important, but and make sure you choose the right algorithm. Thanks, Scott. That's good.
Great. Thanks, Andy. All right, so we've got another question here. So does Ironside bring this all together bundled into one offering? So I guess that's a question for Ironside. I will attempt to answer it. So we work closely with the Precisely data sets, so we can quickly see if third-party data will bring a client value. And we have solutions such as our Ascend AI solution, which is our data science as a service offering. which can bundle those precisely data sets together with your enterprise data. We've got, I think we've got a couple of different Take30s and certainly content on our site that cover off on Ascend AI. So if you would like to learn more about that, certainly check that out or give us a call. All right, so we've got another question here, and it looks like this one is for Andy. What's the best way to get started with the weather API that you talked about?
Good question. So, so at the moment we are just bringing it into production. The best way to start is because it's it is quite particular. So the data is particular. So what I would say is the best way to get started is to ask for one of our team to do a demo, take you through how you can use it, the type of information that you can extract from it, and then we can set up an instance so you can then use that directly. So I think ask your Ironside manager, relationship person, and we can certainly do a demo. And it's a funny one because it is we've built a front end. Nobody ever uses the front end. What it is it's there to show the sort of information that you can pull out of the APIs. So I would suggest having a demo first.
Okay. All right. That's great. So I think that is the end of our questions for now. First, I want to thank Andy for joining us and walking us through all of that, certainly wishing you all a happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. And we will see you again on December 3rd. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you from me as well. Thank you, Scott.